So this is February, the Compassionate Heart Month. That's the theme for the month. And last week we talked about the interconnectedness of all things. And today we are exploring the best of us. The best of us. So when I think about that, when I think about the question, so what is the best of us? What is the best of us? I think of the qualities of God. I think of abundance and balance and beauty and freedom and joy and love and order and peace and power and unity and wholeness and wisdom. All of those qualities which are God qualities are qualities of us. Ernest Holmes says, I stand in the midst of eternal opportunity, which forever presents me with evidence of its full expression. I am joy, peace, and happiness. I am the spirit of joy within me. I am the spirit of peace within me, of poise and of power. I am the spirit of happiness within me. I radiate life. I am life. There is one life, and that life is my life now. That's what Ernest Holmes said, and I think that is the best of us. That is the best of us. So how do we find it? How do we find it? How do we demonstrate it in the world? How do we bring that out? How do we live the best of us? How do we live the best of us? You know, in 1964, there was a psychology professor in Harvard. What's his name? Robert Rosenthal, and he conducted a study of elementary teachers. He gave teachers a standardized test, but he mislabeled it as a test that would reveal who the gifted students were in the class. And so he had the teachers give the test out to all the students. And then at random, he selected several students in each class, and he returned the information to the teachers and identified several students in each class as gifted. And they weren't any different than any other students. He just labeled them as that based on this test. What they found out was that these students began to excel. They scored higher on tests. They started to do better in their grade level. They started to outpicture the expectation the teacher had of them, that they were gifted. And as the expectations increased, their demonstrations increased. The bottom line was these teachers thought these children were gifted. They treated them as if they were gifted. They expected them to demonstrate a higher level of productivity. And the children demonstrated that they were indeed gifted. Of course, you know, there are several factors involved in why that all took place. They followed these children over several years, and they found that things occurred because these children were labeled as gifted. Teachers spent more time with them, you know, answered questions. They were rewarded more for their demonstrations. You know, they were just related to as if they were gifted. And sure enough, they outpictured that. So it showed that the expectation of the level of work and the mastery and the demonstrations of the students, as that expectation was higher, they rose to that expectation. They just rose to it. So it started me thinking. So we look at ourselves, and I have to ask the question, where are we putting expectations on the people around us, high or low, good or bad? Where are we putting expectations of the people around us, and how are the people around us responding to them? Am I thinking my best thought about that other person? Am I giving the benefit of the doubt? Am I giving my highest and best thought of that person when I'm having an encounter with them? Or is my judgment of them getting in my way? We experience other people based on maybe past experiences we've had from them, and then we draw conclusions about them. We create a dynamic that we believe to be true about them, right? And then we just see them as that almost all the time. Those are our expectations. And you know what expectations are, right? There's that great old saying about expectations are just resentments waiting to happen. Oh, that makes me feel so bad. What was it Jacob Glass used to say? I had no expectations and still I was disappointed. I love it. So we have an encounter with someone. We have an encounter and we walk away from it and we slap a label on them that they have to live with for the rest of their lives in our minds, right? She's bossy. He's a brat. She's stupid. He's very smart. She's clueless, or she's going places. He's whatever, We slap labels on people based on one or two experiences with them, and then they have to live with that for the rest of their lives in our mind. They're not living with anything. But we judge them, we pronounce sentence on them, and we convict them for all time based on a few moments in time. Based on a few moments in time. And this is really what the 9th commandment is about. Thou shalt not bear false witness. We were taught when we were little that meant don't lie about people, right? Don't make up stories about people. To always tell the truth about them. But it really goes beyond that. Bearing false witness against someone is to reduce someone to that one label. It is to take the incredible gift that we are, to take this multifaceted jewel that each person is and to reduce them to maybe just one facet. That's bearing false witness. We are so much greater than one moment in time. We are so much greater than our worst behavior. To reduce the beauty and the wholeness of someone to one behavior or one encounter or one or two moments in time is to bear false witness against them. That's really what that means. We are so much more than one bad day or one crabby response or one headache. We're so much more than one bad exchange. And sometimes we don't see the best in people because that's all we see. We see that one or two moments that we had that exchange with them or had that encounter with them that didn't go well, and forever and always they're that person, right? They become that person in our minds. And here's the other thing. What we do to other people, we do to ourselves, right? How many times do you come away from an encounter and go, wow, I could have handled that better. My gosh. I didn't handle that really well. Boy, I sounded like a brat or a creep or whatever. I could have done a better job of that encounter, whatever that was, I remember when we're kids. Do you remember when like you couldn't agree with something or you got into a fight with somebody or it didn't turn out right or you couldn't agree, whatever it was, you always, what was the famous word? Do-over! Do-over! We always yelled, right? He was out, he was safe. He was out, he was safe. He was out, he was safe. Do-over. Remember the do-over? God, we should bring that back as adults. That magical, mystical point in time where everything that came before that gets wiped out and you get to do it again. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Let's bring it back as adults. Let's do the do-over movement. Let's start the do-over movement. I think it would be wonderful. I mean, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't we love the do-over instead of the hurt feelings and the hidden resentments and those awkward, uncomfortable feelings, and emotions you get when you have to be with that person again after that ugly exchange? That ugly stuff? Wouldn't it be just better if we went do-over and we got to do it again? Got to do it again and shed all the nonsense and the awkwardness and the resentments and all of that stuff. I love the do-over. We have a form of that as adults. It's called clear. Is anybody clear with anybody? Do you clear? You get with the other person. Grown-ups clear. That's a good thing. Or some grown-ups clear. Most grown-ups clear. They should anyway, even if they don't. In my world, they do. When someone has one of those awkward and ugly moments, one of those moments where someone gets their feelings hurt, or someone hurts someone else's feelings, or you pop off with something that you were just, thoughtlessly cruel, you know what? You get to clear. I get to come back to you and say, I want to clear with you because I was not at my best and I whatever. And we get to clear. We get to do the grown-up thing. Isn't that wonderful? For me, clearing is a do-over. It is It's kind of the adult form of do-over. I like that A lot of things could be cleared. A lot of things could be healed when we do that adult form of do-over, when we do that clearing. You know, we got off to a wrong foot here. We got off to a bad start. Let's do over. Let's clear. And when we clear with people, we are proceeding with love. We're proceeding in love instead of in fear. You know, because here's the thing that I know about us. We have a tendency to fall into patterns. And the pattern is when we feel like we're attacked, we defend. That's what we do. Attack, defend, attack, defend, attack, defend. When we feel like we are attacked, we defend. Now, the spiritual practice is to respond. The spiritual practice is to respond instead of react, to respond instead of attack, to respond instead of defend. The spiritual practice is to respond. And when we live in that state of undefended love, we have nothing to fear. Let me say that again. When we live in that state of undefended love, we have nothing to fear. Now, that being said, our ego doesn't believe that. The truth is, we have nothing to fear. In the state of undefended love, we have nothing to fear, but our ego thinks it does. Our ego is always looking out for where we're being taken advantage of. Our ego is always looking out for where we're being naive or where we're being vulnerable. Our ego is always on the defensive for where that next attack is coming from so it can keep us safe. So it can keep us safe. Our soul is seeking experience and expression, and our ego is trying to keep us from them. And that's the way it works. So when we stand in undefended love, we know there is nothing to protect ourselves from. There is nothing to protect ourselves from. We are acting out of our wholeness. Do not let people who are acting out of their woundedness keep us from acting out of our wholeness. It's really important. Because when we drop down from acting out of our wholeness to engaging in the battle of attack, defend, we're right down there at the level of condition. Then we have fallen out of our belief in wholeness, out of our sense of wholeness, and now we have dropped down to attack, defend, and so we have fallen out of our oneness into our us and themness. Us and themness. And that's not the best of us. It's not the best of us. The best of us is knowing our wholeness and proceeding from that. And that's the difference between reacting and responding. There's a little gap in time, and I love that. Do you remember Reverend David Fears talked about the little gap, G-A-P. He called it God's area of preparation. I love that, God's area of preparation. There is a teensy, tiny little gap in time between reacting and responding. And in that little gap is the truth of us. In that little gap, just taking that little moment out and remembering who we are, we can choose love instead of fear. We can choose love instead of hate. We can choose love instead of defense. Because love is the truth of who we are. So when we take that little moment in time, when we take and stretch that little gap, we can respond instead of react. And we can respond with love. People are going to, and it happens, people are going to act out of their woundedness all around you. And it's our job to respond from our sense of wholeness, not to let our wounded animal out and attack and defend and attack and defend. That will never heal anything. So it's our being on the spiritual path that we are on. It is our responsibility to stay in our wholeness, to live from our wholeness, to respond from our wholeness, not to get back up in their faces because they have acted out of their woundedness to act out of our woundedness, but it's to remember the truth It's to take that moment in time, to live in that gap for a few seconds and respond with love. Respond with love. Ernest Holmes said, as all is mind, and as we attract to us what we first become, until we learn to love, we are not sending out love vibrations. And not until we send out love vibrations can we receive love in return. That's what Gandhi meant, really, isn't it? When he said, be the change. Be the change you wish to see in the world. You want love? Be love. You want joy? Be joy. Bring it. Bring it. Just do it, right? Just do it. Practicing the presence of God means living in love, living in that state of undefended love. You know, you can't be loving and judging at the same time. Doesn't work. You can't be loving and judging. And you know, I'm not even judging the people who are living out of their brokenness or their woundedness. Because when we're standing just in undefended love, it's okay. They can be whatever they want to be. We're not judging them for being what they're being. We're just being undefended love. We're just being undefended love. Because honestly, does it really matter? Even if the other person is attacking, does it really matter? Do we really care what other people think of us? Thank you. Oh, thank God. The answer is no. It's not my business what somebody else thinks of me. I love that. Wasn't Terry Cole Whitaker, right? Wrote the book, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. It's true. What they think of me is none of my business. If my happiness depends upon someone's opinion of me, I'm already screwed, you know? Forget it. I will be chasing after my sense of wholeness my whole life and never finding it because I'm looking for it where it doesn't exist, in someone else's opinion. If I'm chasing after love in someone else, if I'm chasing after acceptance in someone else, if I'm chasing after my joy and thinking I'm going to find it in someone else, all I'm going to find is disappointment. Because it's not in anybody else. It's in us. It's in us. Our happiness does not depend on our relationship. It doesn't depend on a significant other. It doesn't depend on our boss. It doesn't depend on our coworkers. Our happiness doesn't depend on anything outside of us. And if we are looking to those people, places, and things outside of ourselves so that we can be happy, we're already lost. We're already lost. That is absolutely not the best of us. We have to look within because that is the only place it is. You know, because the world's opinion, what is true about the world's opinion? It's always changing. It's always changing. Didn't we do this in grammar school, for God's sakes, you know? Oh, what was in, what was out, who was a friend, who was not a friend, right? You're in, you're out, you're with the clique, you're not with the clique. Things change, people change, attitudes change. Everything at the physical level changes. What doesn't change? The eternal. Spirit never changes. Spirit is eternal, and that is within us always. That is the truth. That is the truth of us. Everyone else's opinion, the world events, everything that goes on outside of ourselves will never bring us inner peace. Don't let the world of don't let the world of effect affect us. Practicing the presence means being undisturbed when events of the world swirl around us. Practicing the presence of God in any situation means being at peace, being anchored in what we know is true, regardless of the chaos that is swirling around us. Bringing love to any situation in which we find ourselves is the best of us. Bringing peace to any situation we find ourselves. Bringing joy, bringing unity to any situation in which we find ourselves. That is the best of us. That is the best of us, and we can call upon that at any moment. You know, it's about loving what is, staying out of judgment, and knowing the truth for ourselves, regardless of what's going on. Sometimes people are at their best in front of us. Sometimes they're at their worst. And what we know is true for them, of course, we know is true for us. Sometimes we have our good days. Sometimes the best is just horrible, right? But I'm still doing the best I can, and it's still awful. And it's the best I can in that particular moment. So let's not judge ourselves either. Let's be kind and gentle. Not looking at the good in others and being envious of it or being attached to it, or not looking at what we would judge to be the bad in others and condemning them for it, but just seeing God. Just seeing God. There's nothing else. I can look upon you and see God. In the good and in the bad. It's just nothing but spirit. Remember, because if you see with that love, if you see with that undefended sense, if you see God in everyone that you meet, you'll never be disappointed. You'll never be envious. You'll never be jealous. You'll never be judgmental. Because when you see God in everyone around you, you're recognizing that is me. That's me also. When you recognize the good in the other, you say, that's mine also. When you recognize the struggle someone else is having, you say, yeah, I do that too. Yeah, I do that too. So we don't have to judge others. We don't have to, Ernest Holmes used to say, condemn others out of the burden of our souls. Condemn others out of the burden of our souls. If we free ourselves from constant judgment, from the strain of constant judgment, then we are more likely to free other people. And then we can see them for really who they are. They are out picturing of the divine life of God. That's the best of us. Remembering who we are. Remembering the qualities of God. Remembering the abundance and the balance and the beauty and the joy and the love and the freedom and the order and the peace and the power and the unity and the wholeness and the wisdom. Remembering all of those qualities of God exist within us and giving ourselves permission to express those out in the world. And then we give others that same freedom to express their wholeness in the world. And then we see each other as that. We see each other as that, and we meet on that field of infinite possibility. We meet on the field of infinite possibility where we allow everyone to show up in their wholeness, regardless of the condition. We can see everyone for who they truly are. Ernest Holmes said this in A Thing Called Life. He said, every longing and yearning you have ever had, every secret desire of your soul, every constructive ambition you've ever had is a whispering of this life, assuring you you are one with it. You are a concrete manifestation. You are a personification of it. You are a center where life passing through you becomes a definite, distinct, unique individualization of it. There is no one else like you in all the universe, and there never will be. If you take time daily to sense the presence of life within you, to believe it, to accept it, to be it, it will not be long before the life you have known will gradually disappear, and something new will be born, a bigger, better, more perfect you. You will pass from death into life, from lack and want into a greater sense of freedom, from fear to faith. From a sense of being alone, you will pass into the realization of oneness with everything, and you will rejoice in this oneness. That's the best of us. That is the best of us. Seeing God in every person we meet. Seeing peace in every situation we find ourselves. Seeing joy in every event and every occasion. Seeing love reflected back from everyone around us. That is the best of us. And we bring it, and like Ernest Holmes said, we resonate to it, we become the vibration of love, and that is what we experience, the vibration of love. That is the best of us. Thank you so much.